Hello everyone and welcome to this new video. Today we're going to be going over the new Reaper build that I like to use in PvP nowadays. This build is what I like to call the Soul Reaping Blood Magic Reaper build. Very creative name, I know. I'm going to be going over a little bit of the history of the build, how I came up with it, what the build is, what skills and traits we use, some tips and tricks, and while I will be doing all this, there's going to be some gameplay in the back from most of the time for you guys to watch. So let's get straight into it. So basically, I came up with this build when they announced the 2v2 seasons. Basically, I figured that, in a 2v2, which was the game mode in ranked PvP at the time, if your teammate dies, then the whole game is lost. So I figured I need this trait, the Ritual of Life trait, which creates a lesser well of blood when you when you start reviving an ally. And this is super useful as it revives allies by 4% each second, and combine this with the healing skill in which we run another well of blood. You can heal people surprisingly fast, and this is also taking into account the last rites trait. So I figured I needed blood magic, and then I was like, hey, what works with blood magic? And then I saw, wells are kind of the way to go, because I don't really like this trait. I just don't really get it, and I feel like 9% life force when you leave Shroud is just super weak, to be honest. And as a damage dealer, you don't want conditions on you at all. And transfusion is just a little bit weird and has been nerfed quite a lot. So I figured wells was the way to go. So you run some wells. However, first I ran it with Spite with these traits. Because I was like, you need Spite because it's the damage trait line, and because skills like Spiteful Talisman and Reaper's Might and Siphoned Power just give you so much damage that you need to have it. However, with Soul Reaping, the one that we are running in this build, you have Death Perception. And Death Perception, all in all, really does increase your damage much more than running the Spite trait line. That increased critical chance helps just so much, and that together with Soul Barbs and traits like, was there another damage trait? There was not another damage trait. But also Speed of Shadows is just super useful to have, as it gives you swiftness. So as for the runes that amulet that we're running the Berserker amulet because you have quite a lot of sustain from all the siphons in this trait line, plus you have a lot of protection due to the vampiric rituals trait. So in order to still keep up a relevant amount of damage, I just went full damage with Berserker, running Chronomancer runes, obviously, as this gives you 2 seconds of quickness when you cast a well. This is super useful, for example, getting off your elite skill, because basically what you do is you quickly drop a well, and then you immediately use the elite skill for only a 3/4 second cast time for Chill to the Bone. So it's super useful to have, and especially for your heal skill and your elite skill, which both have quite long cast times. So this quickness is super useful. We're going to be running Axe Focus. This is because it's a very great ranged weapon set to have. Additionally, it also generates a lot of life force just simply by using the number 4 skill, which grants 11% life force, which is insane, and also more life force by using Ghastly Claws. I'd also like to point out that Spinal Shivers still does a lot of damage, so just keep that in mind. And it's a 1200 range, not instant cast, but instant damage, which is just super useful to have. So I very much would recommend this weapon set for anyone ever running almost any Reaper build. And then we have the Greatsword. Greatsword is debatable. A lot of Reapers like to use the staff, which is also just as fine. However, I feel like for this build, which is more of a node holder and close range damage-ish dealer, I feel like Greatsword just helps a lot with skills like Nightfall, and being able to pull people into your wells is just super important. Then we're running Sigil of Opportunity on both weapon sets, which deals 5% extra damage to movement impaired foes. This is super useful to have, as we have a lot of cripple in this build via Greatsword 4 and Axe 3, and additionally a lot of chill from Spinal Shivers and Chill to the Bone. Then we're also running Sigil of Exploitation on the ranged damage weapon set Axe Focus, just for more damage. And we're running Sigil of Energy on Greatsword. This is just what I'm used to, but you can really use any sigil that you want here. But however, I do feel like Sigil of Energy is very useful to have, because that one extra dodge can save your life. So the traits, as mentioned before, Blood Magic. We have Mark of Evasion, which is super useful to, for example, if you have a blind, you would dodge into an enemy and then the blind would go off. So you get rid of the blind by using the Mark of Evasion, and then you can still hit the skill that you were planning to use after that. As mentioned before, we have the Res trait, which is super useful, especially when combined with Well of Blood. If you see a downed enemy, for example here, you simply drop the well, run up to them, start resing, and it would almost instantly res them, to be honest. Then we have Vampiric, a lot of Life Siphon, Vampiric Presence, even more Life Siphon. And this is really the backbone of the build, because since ArenaNet started to nerf everything, having Sustain has become just super useful. And even with a Berserker Amulet, the damage that as in the amount of healing you get from Life Siphons is absolutely insane. Let me see if I can like give myself some damage. Yeah, so you drop the well, and for example, if it hits 5 enemies, it just heals for like 1,000 for every tick that it does. So especially against like Minion Masters and Mesmers and team fights, this really starts to add up via all these siphons: Vampiric Presence, and Vampiric Rituals. Last Rites simply helps recover downed allies, and the extra healing power is also tremendous, as 450 healing power really increases the healing you get from regeneration and siphons and your heal skill. So this is actually a super useful trait to have. Then we have Vampiric Rituals, as mentioned before as well. A nice cooldown reduction on your well skills. And additionally, it also gives protection. So be sure to, when you cast a well, put it under you, because then you get the protection. Because if you put it away, you don't get the protection, as you can see. So just keep that in mind. Next, we have Soul Reaping. Gluttony increases the amount of life force gained from all sources. And this is super useful to have, as you know, Reaper mainly does damage just by going into Reaper Shroud and whacking people like this. Like this, the damage is just insane, especially combined with the quickness. So having more life force is very important to have. Then we have Speed of Shadows, another real backbone of the trait, I would say. Having swiftness and mobility as a necromancer is just very important. So additionally, it also gets rid of all movement impairing conditions. So you can just hop into Shroud and go away like that, and you also have quickness to be able to run away even more. So I would really always take this trait. Shroud skills have a reduced recharge. Then we have Soul Barbs. Soul Barbs is basically just a flat damage increase for when you leave and enter Shroud. 10%, very useful. Soul Battery increases the maximum life force amount, and then Death Perception is just a huge damage modifier in Shroud. So basically, in this build, you want to stay back a little bit, gain some life force, drop some wells, and then finish them off with Shroud, which does an insane amount of damage. Lastly, in Reaper, we have Relentless Pursuit. This reduces the duration of movement impairing conditions. I found this important to have because we don't have too much condition clearing in this build, because we don't run with consume conditions. So the only condition clearing that we have is from Well of Power and Spectral Walk. So having especially movement impairing conditions have a shorter duration is very important. So hence this trait. Then we have this trait. I still like to use Soul Eater. It's another source of healing when you hit people outside of Shroud in a range threshold of 300 units. Additionally, it's also a damage increase for all your Shroud skills, because all your Shroud skills are within 240 within 300 units. So another damage modifier. Then we have Cold Shoulders, another damage modifier against enemies that are chilled. And Reaper's Onslaught, which again gives us increased ferocity and extra quickness when in Shroud. So now when we hop into Shroud, as you can see, we have 250 critical damage, and as you can see, it absolutely destroys enemies. So those were the traits. As for the skills, we are running wells, so we are definitely running Well of Suffering, as it is the well with the lowest cooldown, and thus would give us the most healing and most protection. And then I like to use Well of Power, as it is a stun break, because in this build we only have one other stun break, which is Spectre Walk. As for the heal skill, you can swap to Consume Conditions, because Consume Conditions is just an overall great skill. However, I like to use Well of Blood, as it can help revive enemies, and the healing it does is pretty tremendous. Also, it has a lower cooldown. Lastly, we have Spectre Walk. This is also just a very important skill for all Necromancers to have, as it is a stun break, a condition removal, a life force regeneration skill, and you can use it to juke around and really do anything and really get away from enemies if they're chasing you. So super useful, amazing skill. Also, it gives swiftness. Really one of the best skills we have as Necromancer, so I would never really not use it. Lastly, we have Chill to the Bone as the elite skill. I like this skill because it stuns enemies for a solid 3 seconds since the last patch. So what you would do, so 1, 2, 3, which means they're forced to take at least 3 ticks of any wells that you put down, or for example Nightfall, or you can stun them for 3 seconds and then just go hit them with Reaper Shroud for 3 seconds, and that 3 seconds really can make a difference. However, you can also use Lich Form, because Lich Form is like super strong and also does a lot of damage with the Berserker amulet that we have. However, I just prefer Chill to the Bone, as it gives a 3-second stun. So really that's it for the build. Some things to keep in mind when using this build is that with the healing skill, Well of Blood, is that this does not heal through Shroud. So when you put down your healing skill, you want to be sure to not waste the extra healing that you get from it by going to Shroud, because it takes for 5 seconds for 500 health per second. So yeah, that's 2500 health. So no, see, we're taking some damage. We can use the skill, but if you go into Shroud, the only healing I get is from the life siphon here, but not from the actual healing that you get per tick from the Well of Blood. So just keep that in mind. Don't go into Shroud after using the skill. Additionally, one of my favorite combos to use is, well, first of all, Grasping Darkness has a casting time of 3/4 second. However, you don't need to cast this entire skill. For example, if you look at the what's it called, the skill usage, the yellow bar down here, I can cancel the cast time of Grasping Darkness, and then it will still pull the person. So look, I canceled it at like a 1/4 second and it got pulled. Useful to have, especially since it helps land skills easier. Basically, let me find an example. Alright, I use the skill, but basically one of my favorite combos to use is let me go to the Indestructible Golem real quick. You pull the person, you quickly use Chill to the Bone, you put down all your wells and Nightfall, and then you either use Death Spiral to get a lot of life force and vulnerability, or you go immediately into Reaper Shroud to put a lot of damage onto them. Also, be sure to just combo any CC skills that you have with the wells. So for example, I stunned the Guardian and then used Knight's Death Spiral, or I would stun him and then use the Well of Suffering. Let me see if I can show you guys how much the healing actually is, because the healing is insane. Let me see here. Let's see if the Necromancer can do some damage to us. Because if you manage to place your wells very successfully in team fights, the amount of healing that they do is just absolutely insane. So for example, we go here, drop, we started at 8,000 health, we dropped just a single Well of Suffering and a Nightfall, and we are now at 1,800 health. So that was 10,000 healing off of 2 skills by hitting 5 targets. That is absolutely insane. On top of that, we can also do Life Siphon healing via Well of Blood and Well of Power. and especially skills like Death Spiral and Ghastly Claws, which hit a lot of times, are main sources of healing. Because if you hit someone 8 times, you hit them 8 times with Vampiric, you hit them 8 times with Vampiric Presence, and you hit them 8 times with Soul Eater. So let's see if I can get some damage. Where is everyone? Let me see if the Guardian can hit me. Okay, Guardian, come on, yes. Okay, so I took some damage. Now we are going to quickly go back here. Okay, so we are starting off with 8,000 health, and then I use this skill. And then we got 700 healing just by using the skill. And then if you use Death Spiral, which hits 6 times, but can hit a maximum of 3 targets, so let's say here, then we heal. So let's say we start at 9,000. Now we're at, well, we like at 10,200. So that was another 1,200 healing just off a single skill by hitting the maximum amount of targets. So basically what I'm trying to get at is that the sustain of this build is insane. There's good life force generation via Death Spiral, via Soul Grasp, and Ghastly Claws. You can really easily stay on node, because if you just space out your wells, a lot of time the enemies don't know what well you are actually using. So you can put down a well of power which doesn't damage them. However, they just don't want to step inside the well because they think it might hurt them. So if you space that out and then you use this well, then you do some more damage, then you use Nightfall, you know, there's always going to be an AoE on top of the node, which people find scary and try to kite around. And this gives you valuable time to cap the node and kill the enemies from afar. The role of this build is really, primarily in team fights, as you can quickly res your allies and have a lot of AoE damage. 1v1s are also very, very possible. As you guys have probably seen, you can easily, like I've managed to 1v1 enemies quite easily with this build. But however, it does take some practice. Just getting, hitting the skills in the right order, putting down wells at the right time, stunning them, counting dodges. That all helps win fights. So basically, yeah, that's it. In some of my previous videos, you might have seen me running this build. As I mentioned before, it was Spite instead of Soul Reaping. This build is also completely fine. I especially liked it because of the Spiteful Talisman trait, which reduced the recharge of 5 very crucial skills, which are over here. However, overall, I found Soul Reaping to just be much better, as a Reaper's source of damage mainly just comes from Reaper Shroud. And in order to have that, you want Life Force and reduced recharges there, and more damage in Reaper Shroud, so it's all very important. So that was it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you have any questions. Yeah, I've been very successful with this build up until now, and it just does, like, it has a nice balance of healing and damage, and being able to kite, and being able to dish out AoE damage, and being able to 1v1. It's kind of an all-round build. However, if you do feel like you're taking too much damage, you can easily swap to, I would recommend Marauder Amulet if you're going up against condition classes like Mirages or Core Necromancers, or Demolisher Amulet if you're going up against other power classes like another Reaper or Warriors or Guardians or who knows what. I'm going to stick to Berserker Amulet as I find it most fun, but you guys can do whatever. Let me know if you have any questions, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.